Hi, I'm Nathan Lusk from Warrior with a Pen Games, and today we're going to talk about a really special game. It's a weird one. It's called Chiefs, Champs, Brawl, or Ball. And the reason that I say it's a weird game is because it came to me in a dream. I woke up and remembered the dream and wrote down as many notes as I could, and then spent weeks trying to figure out how to make this into a board game. And it finally occurred to me, and I got it put together, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. It's very different than any other kind of territory conquering game you'll ever play, and it does involve dice, so there is some luck involved. But the game is more about the people on your team, the characters that are on your team, than it is about the dice for the most part. So let me talk to you about the game. You run a gang and you're battling other games for turf in a city. And so the goal is to take over the whole city and have all of the turf. Now, typically, if you want a shorter game, rather than having to conquer the entire map, you and your people you're playing with can make an agreement that the first player to get half plus one of all of the major facilities in the game can be the victor. And if you'll notice on the map, there are black facilities and there are gray facilities. The black ones are the major ones. They make more money, or they help you get more characters faster, or they help you get equipment that you can add on to your characters to make them better. They're better properties, and so they are the ones that are used for headquarters. The way I have the board set up right now, I don't think you can see quite all of it, but I have it set up for in a 4-player game where there's white versus red versus yellow versus blue, and the facilities that each one has as their headquarters would be one of the black ones. So the yellows is a high school, blues is a football stadium, whites is the factory down in the south, and red is the casino up here in the north. And so those are their beginning headquarters. If you lose your headquarters, you are out of the game. So that's one way to eliminate your opponent, is to just take turf until you get next to his headquarters and then take his headquarters from him. But it's easier said than done. The reason the game is called Chiefs, Champs, Brawl, or Ball is because when an attacker makes a move to try to take turf from someone else, the defender, the person who currently owns that turf, gets to decide how they're going to resolve the conflict. And he has technically 5 options, but they're divided into 4 categories. And those categories are chiefs, which is the 2 leaders of the gangs will fight. I've only drafted players for 2 gangs, even though I have 4 on the board, because we don't want to play a whole game. I just want to show you how it works. And so each gang has 5 members, and those are shown on these cards. And then 3 more members right here. The other gang has 5 members as well. And they're drafted from a pool that are open to everyone. And so it's a literal draft, kind of like you're drafting a fantasy football team or something. And ironically, you kind of are. So after the draft, they then draft their boards, and all this was done by placement, one at a time. And then once all the lands are taken up, once all the turf is claimed, then the game begins. So the first way to resolve a fight is by chiefs. And that means that the 2 people in control of gangs, the one who is making the challenge and the one who's being challenged, those 2 will fight one-on-one. And the winner of that fight is the one who gets the turf. The second one is champs. That is the 2 second in command in each gang will fight, and the winner gets control of the turf. Then there's brawl, which means all 5 members will fight, and the last team with the last gang with a gang member standing in that fight is the one who wins the fight and gets the turf. And then there's ball. Chiefs, champs, brawl, or ball. And ball is actually divided into 2 different categories. So the way I actually show it is chiefs, champs, Brawl, and then there's basketball and football. And so those are the 5 ways that a challenge can be accepted, and the turf can be, the owner of the turf can be determined. But there's a catch. If you're the defender, you have all the advantage. While you can't actually win anything from defending your turf, and you obviously can lose some turf, you're the one that got to pick how it was going to be resolved. And of course, you're allowed to look at your opponent's gang and see what they're good at before you decide. But you ultimately make the decision on how it's going to be resolved. And so if you lose that particular type of defense, if you choose, let's say basketball, for instance, and the other team beats you, you can no longer call basketball for your defense for as long as that chief is your chief. And you cannot willingly get rid of your chief. A chief is finished, gone, shuffled to the bottom of his stack when he has lost all 5 types of defenses. So at some point in most games, everyone loses a chief. It's hard to win every defense, and you're gonna typically lose a few during the game, at least 5, depending on how long the game goes. And so what I generally recommend to new players is you don't put your best guy at chief. It sounds reasonable to put your best guy at chief because he has a defense where he can call a one-on-one fight against someone else's chief. But if when he loses all 5 battles, that guy's gone, and you don't want your best guy to be gone halfway through the game. So I always recommend that you typically put a second stringer in as your chief, a guy who's good but not excellent, not as good as some of your other guys. Your best player, actually, as far as I'm concerned, should be your champ, and then your other best players need to be in your scrubs, is what I call them. Those are the people that aren't the chief or the champ, and that way they can help you without ever having to worry about losing them on your team. So all of these facilities provide you with cash every turn. So we'll look at yellow, since we're fighting yellow versus red here. We're going to look at yellow's turf, and you'll see at the top of this residential card, there is an amount of cash that it provides to you every turn. Now that money is represented right here. Yellow has 16 cash every turn so far during the game. Red has 20. The casino produces a lot of money, and he just happens to have some good money-making facilities. So he has 20 cash, while yellow has 16. But if you'll notice underneath the amount of cash that it provides, it also tells you for 25 investment, so if you invest a total of 25 cash into this place over the course of the game, it will start providing you an additional 2 cash per turn. So instead of 1, it's suddenly worth 3. And then if you put another 75 cash into it, another 75 cash into it, this residential zone right here will start providing you 5 instead of 3, instead of 1. So every property in the game can be invested in, and that's what the money is for, is to invest in your properties and build them up. And residentials aren't really much of a payout for making big investments in them. The commercials they're okay. It's other special properties like this community center that are really important to invest in. It only provides you 1 cash per turn, but if you invest 50 into it, it will now provide you 3. If you invest a total of 75 into it, it'll provide you 3 cash plus a B-level player, which is a B-teamer, a scrub, basically. Every turn, you'll get to turn over the next of the scrub players and see if the one that you get is better than one of the ones that you have, and replace a player that you currently have with a new player. And then you'll see at 150 total investment, now at that point, every turn, this facility provides you 3 cash, 1 B player, and 1 B item. Now there are 2 types of items in the game, A items and B items. Their difference is the same as it is in the characters. A B character has a black name and typically has lower stats than an A character. This is an A character. You can see the difference. The A character is better. The die level over here on the side, that's how good he is at the different sports involved and the different positions in those sports. So, what you're trying to do is make your gang better at all of the events that they might be participating in, building your turf, expanding your turf, and then making each of your important pieces of turf stronger so that they provide you better bonuses and more money so that you can get more and build more and get better players and get better equipment for those players and take over your opponent's turf. So with all that said, it is there are a lot of things that you can invest in. The landfill is a really great place to get really good items. It does take quite a bit of investment, but once you get that investment in there, you get the very best items in the game. And I'll show you the difference between B items and A items. All the black ones, again, are also really important to get. Here's why. The grocery store, which is a place you could start as a headquarters, starts with a great amount of cash, and then it very quickly builds more and more and more cash, plus gets you more characters pretty soon. After only a 50 investment, you can start looking at B players. And then if you look at that 300 cash investment, it's a lot. But what that means is the amount of cash you get every third turn is increased by the business plus charisma of whatever character you want to assign to be the leader of your grocery store. So for instance, if I want Destructo, who has a business and charisma of 4 plus 6, so 10, he would give me an extra 10 cash per turn if I put him in the grocery store to run my grocery store for me. Every third turn, I'd get a big bonus out of the grocery store. So tons of facilities. They all do different kinds of things. Tons of characters. These are all of the B characters right here. That's totally the wrong side. These are all of the B characters right here on top of the ones that are already on the teams. These are all of the A characters right here. Plenty of them. And then over here, these are all of the training items that you can get by going to the basketball stadium, the football stadium, or the multi-purpose arena, or the police station. You get training in those facilities that make you better at those particular things. The police station and the multi-purpose arena are good for teaching your players how to fight better. The football stadium is good at teaching people how to play football better, and the basketball stadium is good at teaching people how to play basketball better. So owning those facilities and getting them beefed up are really good for your team also. And then last but not least, here are all of the items. Let me split them between the A's and the B's. There we go. So A items, like I said earlier, are in red. B items, their names are in black, like knee braces that make you a better center in basketball. Or so that's a typical B equipment. It makes you better at one position in a sport, while an A equipment makes you better at every position in a sport. So if you give this item to a player, he is suddenly better at all 3 positions of basketball. So how do you make the challenge? So if we're yellow versus red, let's say it's yellow's turn first, and he chooses to challenge red to a battle at the skyscraper. Red now gets to decide what kind of defense he wants to go with. What sport are we going to play to resolve this? And after looking at all of his players, wow, red feels pretty good about basketball. Red's going to go with a basketball defense. He's pretty good at basketball. Now what he has to do, if you'll notice on the cards, each sport is color-coded differently. And so the basketball is the green, and you have a guard, a forward, and a center. So you have to assign 3 of your gang members to be your guard, 1 to be your guard, 1 to be your forward, 1 to be your center. Both teams have to do that once the challenge has been thrown down. So this team will have Sloth Frico at guard. He's a D8. They will have Destructo, their chief, at forward. He's a D6. And then they'll have Biff Prolet at center. He's also a D6. So he pulls a D8 and 2 D6s. And that's how good he is at basketball. His opponent, the one who decided that this is what it's going to be, is basketball, has Jazz Jenkins to play guard. He's a D8 at guard. And actually, no, he's going to put him at forward because he's also a D8 at forward. But Boris Pukov is an 8 at guard. And then he'll take Bronco Tarrant as his center. So he has a D8, and a D6. I don't have any more D6s out right now, so there we go. And so these two will be playing each other. It should be a close game because their dice aren't too far different. And a basketball game is a game to 21. And you start it by rolling a die to see which team gets the ball first. The yellow team rolled a 4 and the red team rolled a 3. So the yellow team is going to get the ball first. And now what they'll do is they'll roll their dice against each other. And in basketball, you just add up the total and you subtract. So whichever team has the ball adds up their total and subtracts the other team's total. And if there's a positive difference, such as 19 minus 15 makes 4, then that means that this team scored 4 points in a make-it-take-it game to 21 until they lost possession of the ball, and now it's the other team's possession, and they have a chance to score. So this team goes, subtracts this team from it. He rolled 7 plus 4 is 11 plus 5 is 16. This team rolled 5 and 2 is 7 and 1 is 8. So 16 minus 8 is 8. This team scored 8 points and then gave the ball over to them. And now this team gets a chance to score. Remember, we're playing to 21. He rolled a total of 14. And this team rolled a total of 15. So he scored no points, but he turned the ball over. And so now this team has the ball again. 6 and 3 is 9 and 5 is 14. Minus 13, they scored 1 point. So now they have 9 versus 0. And now it's this team's ball again. He is rolling garbage. He's got 8. But this team only has 7, so he did get a point. So it is now I'm totally lost. 9-1, I believe. This team has the ball again. It's 9-1. 5 and 3 is 8. That's 16. He did not score. This team's ball again. 8. Terrible rolling. 9 did not score. This team's ball again. It's still 9-1. Whoa, that was a total of 15. That was a total of 12. So they got 3. It's now 12-1. And it's this team's ball. There's a big roll. 17 and 11. So they got 6. It's now 12-7. This team's ball. That's 15 points. 13. So now it's 14-7. This team's ball. Uh-oh. They got 19. They got 8. So that's 11 points. That puts them at 19-15. You do have to win by 2. This team has 15. I hope I'm keeping track of this correctly. I usually do it on paper. It's easier. 14. So they got 1 point. It's now 16-19. And this team has the ball. Oh, that's a huge roll. 20. And the defense is a 15. It's game over. This team has won the basketball defense. The turf does not change hands to the yellow team, and they do not lose the ability to call basketball as their defense moving forward. So it was a really smart play, good defense, and now they didn't lose anything. And now it's their turn to challenge the the yellow team for a piece of turf, and they're gonna challenge for the grocery store. And now the yellow team gets to choose its defense. And to make this easier, they're gonna do a brawl, which is every single player on both teams fight, and you compare them with highest to highest down to lowest, or highest versus highest down to lowest versus lowest. And so what I'm gonna do is he's a 10, 8, 8, 6, 4. So Let's get a 10. There's a 10. 8. I don't have another 8 over there. 8, 6, 4. Boom. And this team is a 10, 8, 8, 6, 6. So 10, 8. Should get more dice out. I'll just roll these also. And there's a 6, 10, 8. I'm just missing an 8 on this side. So highest versus highest. So the two 10s fight each other. If they tie, neither wins. This one rolled a 7. That one rolled a 3. So this one is out. That 10 player is now out of that team. He's been knocked out. Now we go to the second highest for each team. 7 to 2. So this one is out. And this one stays in. And now that gives me my other 8 since that other 8 got knocked out. And so now the third best fighter for each team, 8 versus 8. 7 to 2. This one's out. Well, this team is steamrolling this. And now they fight 6 versus 6. 6 to 6. They both stay. And now it's this four-sided die versus this 6-sided die. It's the last player on each team that hasn't fought yet. He rolls a 6. He rolls a 3, so he's out. And now they start back at the top. This 10 versus a 6. The 4 beats the 2. He's only got one fighter left, and it's a 6-sided die versus an 8-sided die. He gets a 5, and he gets a 3, so he's still in it. Now he has to fight another 8-sided die. 6 to 1, he's still in it. Now it's an even 6-on-6 fight. Wow, 6 to 1. It's now 1-on-1, a 10-sided die versus a 6-sided die. This is winner take all. 10 to 2. This team wins. They defend their territory. Red does not get it, and the yellow team does not lose the ability to call that kind of defense again. So the other one, obviously besides fighting, is football. And in football is the most complex. You assign 2 people as linemen. One is a quarterback, one is a running back, one is a receiver. And that's why you're on offense. And then on defense, you assign 2 as a D lineman. One is a linebacker, one is a cornerback, one is a safety. And you take all of those respective dice and roll them together for totals. And you play 4 quarters where each team is allowed to basically have the ball once per quarter. So it's this offense versus this defense in the first quarter. And then this offense versus this defense in the first quarter. And then that's the end of the first quarter. All you do is roll the dice. And if one team, the team with the ball, outscores the other team, the defense, then they are considered to have scored a touchdown in that quarter. And after 4 quarters, whichever team has the most touchdowns wins. If they are tied, they go to sudden death, where they play 1 quarter at a time until one team ends with a touchdown and the other one doesn't. And then that determines who the winner is. So this is Chiefs, Champs, Brawl, or Ball. It's very basic right now, and obviously I can make a better game board pretty soon, because that part is not too difficult for me anymore. But the rest of the game needs some artwork. I don't think we want to put artwork on every single character in the game, because my gosh, that would be a ton. But I do think that we need some really engaging stuff for the board. We need some for the game sheets right here. And we probably ought to get some good artwork for a box and be able to redesign the cards, even if we're not going to put each character on them. I definitely want to do something different with these. And I think a good artist might be able to put some slick graphics on there and get us moving forward in that direction. So probably even just make some icons, for fists for the fights and basketballs and footballs and all that for the different events. So it's a great game. My friends love playing it. It's been play tested quite a bit, and there are a few different ways to win. It's happened a few different ways that victory has been had. I've won it through getting better items than my opponents and really souping up my team through items. I've seen it won by characters building up really fast, or players building up really fast where they can get better characters. And so they get some of those A characters who are just better than the B characters, and they kind of roll their way to victory that way. So it's a neat game. It needs a lot of artwork added to it, and some cleaning up. And I can't do that without your help. So take a look at my Patreon. See if there's a level at which you could afford to support me to get artwork for all of my games. I really appreciate you checking out the video today, and I'm glad you came to spend some time with me again. This is Chiefs, Champs, Brawl or Ball, and I am Nathan Lusk from Warrior with a Pen Games. Happy gaming. I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for hanging out with me and checking out the video.